Good evening there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to NXTGEN Racing, the home of motorsport, simulated motorsport on iRacing, a set of course of competition, a GT Sport, Dirt Rally 2, you name it, we cover it. And tonight we mark the commencement of the pre-season for the iRacing GT3 Championship Season 2, with this being the first of 3 test events, the first one being held at the Brazilian circuit of Interlagos. Now I must apologise for the brief delay there of approximately 2 to 3 minutes. We had some minor technical issues with regards to the audio, which meant that we weren't able to actually come through on the microphone to you guys and girls, so you would have heard absolutely nothing, as we would have been prattling away with regards to the proceedings for tonight. But we finally got those issues fixed, and we are now here good to go once again in the build up to what is expected to be an even more intense season after what was a fantastic conclusion to season 1 only a couple of weeks ago. Now our schedule for tonight will be getting underway according to the clock there, based on British Summer Time and UTC +1 at 8 o'clock this evening. So in just over 10 minutes time we'll be commencing with qualifying, the 15-minute qualifying session to determine who will be on pole for the purposes of our sprint race. We'll then be having a 15-minute sprint race immediately after the qualifying session, and that race of course will be 15 minutes, no strategic involvement whatsoever. It's about going as fast as possible to the finish, and then after that we'll be taking a brief pause before coming back for the feature race, which will be the 60-minute endurance race with the mandatory pit stop, which will run at 9 o'clock tonight. In the commentary box, of course, you have myself returning from season 1, that is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And this broadcast tonight is being brought to you live via 3 different media platforms. The official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel, that's NXTGEN Racing on YouTube. You've also got us on what is Facebook. If you look up Facebook groups, you'll find NXTGEN Racing, and you'll see this has been brought to you by the NXTGEN Racing Facebook group. And last but not least, if you are inclined to Twitch, then it will be the case that you can tune in on Twitch at my own personal Twitch channel of TX141 on Twitch. Now, with that, this series will be brought in collaboration with Apex Racing Academy, our principal sponsor, who we're very glad to have coming back again for Season 2. And let's introduce Apex Racing Academy. So who are Apex Racing Academy then? Well, they're not just a setup shop. They are dedicated to making you better at iRacing with services, access to drivers and features not found on other driving schools and academies. Working with them will see you connecting with pros like never before. You can learn how to prepare for a race, build setups, improve lap times and understand how to use telemetry tools such as VRS. Every week they host multiple sessions where members can join the coaches and take advantage of group coaching sessions, and in partnership with SDK Gaming, all the data provided will be automatically synced directly to your PC. There's no need to go hunting for setup, replay or ghost files. The data is right there when you turn the simulator on. If you're interested, why not sign up today at apexracingac.com. Their official website, once again, apexracingac.com. As I say, we're very grateful to have Apex Racing Academy coming back to support us in running this second season of the GT3 Championship, which by popular demand has had a full quota of sign-ups. Already signed up for Split 1, or not Split 1 I should say, Lobby 1. We are aiming to host 2 entire lobbies, and that's going to be 60 drivers as a minimum in Lobby 1. That's the target, and we've already achieved that, and a further up to 60 in Lobby 2. So sign-ups are plenty, and Apex Racing Academy will be there supporting us with Lobby 1. That's what we'll be focusing on when we come to the main season, and I'm sure Apex Racing Academy will have some things to throw up for grabs, as well as supporting us in running the series. Now, as for tonight, we are of course in Brazil, at Sao Paulo, Brazil, at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace circuit, also known in short as Interlagos, a circuit which is shown on the circuit map here by simracingwiki.com, provided to us of course by the website, and we're very grateful for their involvement. A circuit consisting of 15 corners, 2 very long straights, also a third smaller straight, if you would argue it, coming out of turns 4 and 5 in the run up towards 6, but you have the very long straight that emanates from Juncao at turn 12 all the way in the long run up towards turn 1, which marks the commencement 1/8 of a lap in the run into the centre S's. You also have the run out of Curva del Sol of turn 3, which runs onto the second longest straight of the circuit. That's the Reto Aposta, and this circuit is known throughout the ages in terms of motorsport of being one of those tracks which tests a car to its absolute limits, not just in terms of straight line speed but also cornering, because as you can see, whilst the opening half of a lap is dominated by medium speed apexes, albeit a heavy braking zone into turns 1 and 4, it is the case as you go beyond turn 7 you start to move into this technical sequence, sector 2, which is focused very heavily around braking and also very low speed apex in that cornering capability. But on top of that as well, this circuit has multiple altitude changes or inclination changes in terms of the angle of the road, also the relative altitude of the car relative to the circuit, in terms of where the lowest point on the circuit is at turn 5, whereas at the highest point is around turn 15. On top of that as well, to add to the complications even more, because of the elevation changes, particularly through turn at number 9 at Pinaheirio, it is a case that cars will be caused to be tested to limit in terms of their rolling capabilities, that body roll. You have everything here, and it's why Interlagos is seen as one of those circuits where sim racing equipment can be set for balance of performance, because this circuit will test every single aspect of a car. Now, as for the rules for tonight, our drivers shall be running the iRacing medium downforce setup for tonight's races. That is a fixed setup, while our drivers will all have a fixed setup on their chosen cars, and they will not be able to tweak the significant settings with regards to things such as the suspension, the anti-roll bars, etc. I believe they are allowed to make some minor tweaks to the setup for personal preference, but beyond that, these are fixed setups, and it does mean that our drivers are all running to a rule. In the sprint race, we'll be seeing that each driver has one fast repair available, and in the feature race, it will be the case that our drive starting fuel loads will be restricted to 75% for the start of the race, and this will mean there is that mandatory pit stop, which will require drivers to take on fuel, but changing tyres is of course optional. Whether our drivers do it on a single set of tyres or decide to switch is entirely up to them and their confidence. And each driver of course have one fast pair available also in the feature race. Now, having covered our rules, let's come back to our live pictures right now as we start to see our drivers are making their way around the circuit, and we can see that it does look as though Matt Caruana having a little bit of a moment on entry into turn 1 there and making his way into the wall. I think I'm having to take a bit of evasive action under braking. Now, as we do continue to look around here, we will have some familiar faces who you have seen. There will also be some new faces who you have not seen, and some of these individuals will be joining us in Lobby 1 for the purposes of the series, and we will see those individuals in Lobby 1, but we'll also see a good number of individuals here who will be racing in Lobby 2, where we've already got enough drivers in that lobby to form a lobby, but you'll be seeing them here practicing tonight. And really, with the 5 minutes remaining, I should take you through what the purpose of tonight is. There are no points up for grabs tonight. It's only a case of scoring brownie points over your fellow rivals. If it's a case that a driver feels as though they want to try and make a statement tonight, then they can try to do so, of course, by showing that they've got the pace compared to their peers within their class. Otherwise, there are no points up for grabs. This is a pre-season test session of which we have got 3. This is the first of the 3, and all these pre-season test sessions are aimed at giving our drivers ample opportunity to get ready for the season ahead. So getting used to the different cars that are available before making that final decision a week before we're due to get underway. I believe it's a week before we're due to get underway in terms of the car they're going to pick. Of course, there's multiple cars up for selection, and we will talk about those cars come the end of tonight's programme. But we can see here, for example, Ed Latt, the CXR Project Black driver, returning and will be racing in the Pro-Am class this season, and he is currently running around in the Lamborghini Huracan. Meanwhile, as we look further around, we do have the returnee of Robert de Sunic here from the Netherlands, who's making his way down into turn number 4 here, also in the Huracan at the moment. But there are plenty of drivers out here will be experimenting. We can potentially see some car changes between the 2 races as well, as we see Neil Butler here from Full Send Racing, a newcomer to the series, making his way into that pro class, and right now making his way around in towards what is turn number 12 there, unless I'm very much mistaken. And that is turn 12 as he flies up the hill now all the way through to the start finish line. So again, it is a test session tonight. The racing will be relatively intense, I suspect, albeit our drivers may not be taking this one as seriously as when they come into the full season, and as a result it does mean it gives our drivers a little bit of an opportunity to size one another up and get to grips with the cars that they think may be best or a bit worse compared to other cars around them. And also, given that the circuits we're going to be the testing on are going to be very different circuits compared to one another, and we'll reveal the other circuits a little bit later on, and we'll start off with Interlagos, this does mean that our drivers have ample opportunity to really narrow down which car they plan to select in the season, because remember, when we come to the official season, our drivers will only be allowed one car swap, and that will be after the midway point of the 12-round calendar. Otherwise, they will take a 40-point penalty for every swap that follows after that. But as we can check right now in the chat, we've got a good number of you tuning in, and we can see in the YouTube chat there we've got Carl Oosterhuizen saying hello, and best commentating in the game and presentation is on point as always. Well, I really do appreciate that compliment there, Carl. It's very kind of you. We've also got him cheering on Stefan Vessels, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, Stefan right now currently parked in the pits in the Red Bull machine there, the South African driver, just waiting to get underway. We can also see there we've got Bavke there. I believe that's how we say your name, and he is cheering on Kurt, and I believe when he says Kurt here, he's most likely cheering on Kurt Van Hoenacker, who's currently parked in the pits and is bringing the Audi R8 tonight, and we look forward to seeing what Van Hoenacker can do in the R8. We can also see Billy Fletcher racing there in the Twitch chat. Billy Fletcher, of course, being our champion in the Pro League in Season 1 in a titanic battle between himself and Matt Caruana, going down to the season finale at Spa-Francorchamps, and whilst he's not joined us out on circuit tonight, it's good to have you in the Twitch chat, Billy, and we hope you're doing well. And we've also got AJ20 in the Twitch chat saying hello. I hope you're all doing well, those guys and girls who are tuning in, of course, whether you're tuning in live right now, alternatively at a later point and watching this back. I hope you're all having a good day and you're having a good week so far, and it's all smiles all around, because it certainly smiles here in the commentary box, as we've got plenty of drivers making their way around the circuit right now. And speaking of smiles, you can see then his profile picture, Mark Sykes, full of smiles as well. The English driver bringing out the BMW M4 tonight for Next Gen Racing, and we are only now 1.5 minutes away from the qualifying session. And speaking of coming up towards the qualifying session, it's going to be the case that I think very shortly I am going to be joined by Matt Emmons, who is one of our drivers taking part tonight, for a little bit of insights from him with regards to what he's expecting in going racing. Just give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we are going to try and get Matt Emmons into our interview room, albeit the virtual one, and we'll see if he can join us briefly. As we are planning, as of this season, to hold pre-race interviews with a driver or a couple of drivers before we get underway with the racing package tonight, in terms of the qualifying plus then the subsequent sprint. But given the fact we had some minor technical issues, we have been delayed very slightly. But as we can see here, Don Hunter, the American, making his way across that timeline and down towards turn number 1 in a rather fetching livery Porsche 911 there. The Martini racing machine. I do love those colours being brought back there on the Porsche 991, I should really say. That looks absolutely fantastic as he makes his way through turn number 3 right now and heads up towards 4 as he comes flying on down towards that heavy braking zone. We are now only 20 seconds away from qualifying, and we'll have to wait and see what everyone's able to do. But right now, in terms of the fastest times, it has been Jason Landry, the Canadian here, who has set the fastest time in this session. And for those wondering, by the way, why some drivers are not assigned to classes at the moment, alternatively have not got their team names presented, it is just a situation at the moment whereby we're still waiting for drivers to finish off their registrations. I believe drivers have mostly been assigned to their categories, and we will try and update that data for you as we go through the proceedings tonight. But do keep in mind that, of course, this is a pre-season, so we are finalising a lot of the details, so there will be some gaps as we head into qualifying. So it's a 15-minute qualifying session, and as we wait for all of our drivers to make their way out of the pits now, it is a case that everybody will be raring to go. We can see Enio Baba there making his way out as well as they all make their way on to the circuit. We can also see Matt Emmons there, who I think wasn't able to join us in the end due to our little delay, which is unfortunate, but we can see Matt Emmons now coming back to the series, of course, the driver making his way on through, and he is racing for Luxim 24 in collaboration with MMV Esports. So it's a case he's changed teams slightly, working with the Luxim guys as he makes his way down towards turn number 4 here. And we can see Jeremy DeBova there in the YouTube chat as well. He's saying good luck to everyone tonight. Next week we're back on track, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit, Jeremy. You are missed, of course, when you're not out on the circuit, and we look forward to seeing you. And I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, it may be the case that young Navarro from the DeBova clan is also coming back. We hope to see him as well after that brilliant turn of performance in the second half of the season. But as all of our drivers make their way around right now, it is the case. We didn't have a chance to catch up with any of our drivers. We gave our drivers a bit of privacy with regards to not asking for pre-testing faults, for the simple reason, as we see there, the Mr. Sparkle, I believe that's the Simpsons reference there, on Sam Holman's car as he parks up after hitting the exit wall of turn number 3, effectively coming out the pit lane. That's not good news, and that is not going to be a good start for the Mr. Sparkle machine. And Sam Holman gets underway again, does the Briton, as meanwhile all of our drivers make their way around, and as we're waiting for them to go onto a lap, we're going to ride on board here with Baba as he takes us around for the lap of the circuit. So coming out of the final corner now at turn 15, across that timeline to go onto a qualifying lap here. Makes his way all the way down towards turn number 1 here, braking at the 50-metre board. And coming down through the gears, getting a nice apex there before flicking the car to the right, cutting across the apex to 2, through the center S's, and now coming through the Curva del Sol turn 3 here, stamping on the throttle and build up as much speed as possible, abusing the rotation of the Porsche 991 as he charges down at the Repro Posta here towards turn 4. The end of the first sector, coming down into sector 2, and as he makes his way into the heavy braking zone here, we can see got a little bit of traffic ahead of him right now, which is holding up slightly as he comes out of Repro Posta, making sure not to go beyond the lines there in order to avoid any potential incidents as he now heads up the hill towards turns 5, 6 and 7. Well, he's gone through 5 already, I should say, goes into 6 and 7 here. The double right hand apex, medium speed, and having to balance it on the throttle as he now comes up into the first hairpin style corner of turn number 8, coming all the way down to second gear before going up into third briefly. No, in fact, staying in second in the end, but the traffic in front of him definitely causing him a lot of problems. The number 133 car is now on his inside as he comes up into turn number 10 here, the second of our hairpins. 133 has backed off, I should tell you, and as he makes his way out of the corner and comes through 11, heading around towards Junção now, completely committed to the apex of 11 and building up the speed as we see a car circuit there, using the wide apex there into Junção to widen the corner and running the car over the inside apex and feeling very stable on the exit. And now it's full throttle all the way as he charges up the hill through 13, through 14, and making his way around to the final left hand here of turn number 15. Will we see if Casey's going to finish that? I think he's coming into the pit for the obstruction. No, he's running it all the way to the end, and as he makes his way across the timeline, this will be the opening lap set by Enio Bava, and it is a 1:32.8. And let's see what other drivers are able to do, as that was Gus Franken who was behind him having a bit of a difficult moment, and Matt Caruana already going considerably faster by the best part of almost 6 tenths there in the Lamborghini Huracan with 32.2. More times coming in right now, and as they all continue to make their way around, of course, and we get those times coming in, we can see Matt Emmons bringing the BMW M4, of course, and returning to a car that he really did enjoy in the early stages of season 1, and he moved away from it feeling that there was a better car out there for him. But I think the findings were come the end of the season of season 1, the BMW M4 was the car that really suited his driving style, and he is returning to it, at least for this test session, as we've had nobody go to the new car. I should point out, nobody's dared go to the Ford GT so far, which is the new car for this season. We've seen the disappearance of the BMW Z4 Legacy machine, and we can see Andrew Lovesley now making his way back out of the pits, number 188 driver, as he makes his way down towards turn number 4 here. And Lovesley, of course, a driver who was very much enjoyed for his racecraft, and as he makes his way down there, we can see from Ignium Motorsport, we've got a lot of the Ignium drivers returning once again. It's great to see them out in force here, and Lovesley now making his way through turn 5 and up towards 6. He moves out the way there for what is our driver in the Ferrari behind. That was Franken, who was just coming on through as everybody tries to find their place out on the circuit. We've also got here Andy Walmsley as he makes his way down across that timeline here and does set a reasonable lap, I believe, as he widens the entry into turn 1 there, then some. And in fact, that lap did not count. He's just come out the pit in the Elf liveried Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo there, and we can see it's Enio Bava who has just set the fastest out of 32.167 in the Porsche 991. And Bava, where it was a very smooth lap when we rode on board previously, and he's upped the ante considerably given the fact he was held up on his opening flying lap, as we see Jason Landry as well has taken the fight and is only a 10th off right now. Enio Bava on a 1:32.27 as they make the way up the hill here, and you can see that Landry really in that situation right now where he's getting a huge toe in the run down towards turn number 15 across that timeline. He's getting the toe off of the back of what is Franken's car, and this is going to help him massively here. This toe could prove to be the difference between pole and alternative where he is currently, where he didn't improve on the rest of the lap, so he's had to pull in on a 32.3, so it's not an improvement from Landry. But you can imagine if Landry could find that time out on the rest of the circuit and then pick up the toe in the run out of Junção up towards the start finish line, he would gain massively, as we see Caruana here in the Huracan currently the best part of only 9 thousandths off a Landry and a further 10th of a Bava right now. But Caruana getting off to a flying start as we see the best of our drivers in the Pro-Am category so far, Romano in that P4 position. Now I should say, of course, we are missing some of the titles for some of our drivers in regards to their respective categories, so we're not going to focus too heavily on which category the drivers are in right now. Once we've got that data fully populated, we will further clarify that. But we can see Romano right now making his way through turn number 8 here and looking very smooth, and the fastest of our Pro-Am drivers as it currently stands. Now if you want to be able to distinguish the different classes of driver, if they've got a green line against their name in the timing board on the left hand side of your screen, they're in the Pro category. If they're purple, they're in the Pro-Am category, and if they are orange, they are in the AM category, or the amateur category. Now of course there will be the ones with the black lines because that's where their data hasn't been populated yet, but we are going to fix that for you guys and girls as we go through tonight's proceedings and go into the future test events. As we do see there, Romano getting a little bit sideways there on exit. The car almost catching him out as he makes his way up through turn number 13 and heads through to 14. But this is looking a relatively good lap from Romano. A bit of a sighter lap, I think, for the number 139 driver as he comes around. He takes the wide line there. He decides to run wide out of 15, and you can do that to extend the run to turn 1, and that gives you 1 to 2 miles an hour grade to top speed come the end of the straight. But of course, it costs you lap time because you've extended your run to that timing line. The best way to do the fastest lap on a straight, of course, is to take the straightest possible line to that timing line, and Romano was not doing that there, of course, as we see now. Tony Verschaff, meanwhile, bringing out the BMW M4 this time. Verschaff going for a bit of a different spill of a car as he makes his way in through turn number 6. Well, actually, I say he's gone for a different car. I think he was in the BMW M4 come at the Spa finale, and indeed making that M4 work wonders as he makes his way for 8 right now. As he comes on through, of course, we can see further behind, we've got Robert Desunic just up behind him right now. And indeed, these two, we saw them come together multiple times and working together under the banner of Team Netherlands in the Season 1 races, which they were able to take part in the final third of the season. They worked very well together, particularly the fuel-saving effort between Robert Desunic, Tony Verschaff, and also a couple of the other drivers in that group. And we can see Desunic here, and it was Ben Faines who was the third of the drivers in that group. All three of them working together very, very tirelessly and making it work. But as they make their way on round of right now, you have to imagine that at this point they're just simply getting those sighters in and looking at with 7 minutes of qualifying to go. There's plenty more time out there and up for grabs as we do see Desunic coming across that timeline here. He straight lines it and he does not improve this time around as he makes his way into turn 1. Now returning in the AM class, we can see here it is none other than Jochen Siegert, the German driver in the Jägermeister machine, racing for NXTGEN Racing Orange this time around. And we can see the number 248 car smiling from ear to ear there, or at least gleaming we should say, and the German very happy to be back racing once again, and indeed a fan favourite in the Jägermeister machine. A very distinct livery, and a livery that has been tweaked, I believe, by Mark Sykes Designs, of course sponsoring this series as well. Mark Sykes Designs run by none other than Mark Sykes himself. As we can see, you can see it making his way through 5 and up into 6 here, and it is a lovely livery BMW M4. And Siegert, a very strong driver. It didn't quite go his way in the second half of the AM season, but returning to the AM category for season number 2, and we are expecting a lot from him. But as we continue to look around right now, we do still have plenty more drivers taking to and attacking the circuit. And in fact, we've had more drivers turn up since qualifying started. That's how many drivers are taking part in these test sessions at the moment. We can see the very fruitful coloured Ferrari there. I mean, when I say fruitful, it is a case of going for the Ferrari standard colour of red, the other one being yellow. Of course, you see a Ferrari in yellow out in the street every so often, but typically it's red. And we can see it's in the hands of none other than Stefan Gamborg Rasmussen as he makes his way around right now and comes up towards the timeline here. And what is Rasmussen able to achieve as he comes across that line? We will wait and see. It is not an improvement from a 34.1 that lap was. Meanwhile, his best lap was a 34.15 as we take a look into our box right now, and we are not hearing anything with regards to the stewarding right now. I think it just is the case. We haven't got too much stewarding in effect today. We will be expecting our drivers to be respectful. Of course, it is a pre-test session, so whilst it's not too serious, driving standards are expected to be respected at all times, because otherwise it will be the case that some drivers may be given a little bit of a finger wag going into the actual races in 3 weeks' time. Alternatively, they may be even told not to come back if they're that very unprofessional and unsporting. But I'm sure we're not going to be seeing any of that. We saw very good racing throughout all of season 1. There were some major contentious moments, some major incidents, but they were all resolved, and the stewarding did work to great effect as we continue to see our drivers make their way around. We also have here in the BMW M4 Rick Jansen, who will be in the Pro category this season. He gets it a little bit wrong then. The rear end completely comes around through turn number 11 and just simply rotating the car too quickly over the apex curve of 11, something which becomes dangerous, and now taking the rallycross line here to rejoin, coming on to the exit of turn number 12 here, being very sensitive to come on late after turn 12, because the way drivers come out of turn 12, of course, they take a wide exit berth going up towards 13. You can see Janssen now returning as our drivers come on through there, and nobody majorly impeded. Meanwhile, as we look around here, we do have the return, of course, of the South African of Jaco Boshoff, the Ignium Motorsport driver, once again bringing out the Lamborghini Huracan. And we did see the Ignium guys bringing a good number of Huracans to other races and making them work. And Boshoff, whilst he wasn't able to take part in a good number of the final races of the season, he was dearly missed. And it is the case that we're very glad to see him returning once again today. It has been a joy to see him return as he makes his way up the hill now and tries to come to the end of his current lap. Racing in the Pro category for for this season, as we've been informed, as he makes his way through 14 and up into 15 right now, getting the distant toe off of his teammate just up the road as well, which may help him to a degree, as we see the Ignium Motorsport machines make their way across that timeline. And it is the case that Hunter was setting a 134.4, and then we can see Bosch of a 34.0, but neither one of them improve, as Edlac does improve considerably. And speaking of the man, the CXR Project Black machine here, it is the case that Lack improved to a 32.981, putting in P3 in class, we believe as it currently stands, and also P13 overall. But again, we have not got the classes fully accurized in yet, as we see him making his way down towards turn number 4 here, and bringing the Lamborghini Huracan, and having the opportunity to speak to Lack. Of course, he came into the commentary box in the season finale for a brief catch-up. It was the case that Lack was feeling as though he had a good season and was looking very much forward to season 2, and we're glad to see him making his return once again here, as we do continue to take a look in at the chat right now, and we can see there that for Carl Oshusen saying it is the case in the YouTube chat that this is Stefan Vessel's first competitive iRacing race. He's done so well to adjust from Assetto Corsa competition. And as we take a look at Stefan Vessels here in the Red Bull liveried 488 GT3 Evo, the Ferrari, making his way through turn 3. That's great to hear that this is effectively his debut, and this will be his debut series in iRacing, and what better way than to do it on a next-gen series as he makes his way down towards turn number 4. Now, of course, it will be a significant transition coming from the sim of a Assetto Corsa competition. We're not going to go into the differences between the sim, because I personally don't know them well enough. I can tell you that I'm currently, as a sim racer in my spare time, I am training on a Assetto Corsa competition, and will be racing in PC Series in what is 2022, but more on that another time in my own private personal life. But right now, focusing on the guys here and now, the stars of the show. Of course, Vessel's just making his way around, and currently P9 in the AM class, and doing a very good job, it must be said, in terms of putting the laps in right now, as his best lap has been a 32.8, and that's only 7/10 off Enio Bava's pole lap, and Enio Bava staying in the pit, so I think he thinks he's got it done. And looking further into the chat there, we can see K-Teams in the Facebook chat saying, you don't realise how much you missed this series until the season ends. Thank goodness you're broadcasting the pre-season. It's nice to see Andrew Lovesey back. Well, thank you for the compliment firstly, Katie, but more importantly, yes, it's fantastic to see Lovesey returning. And I've got to tell you one little thing right now. Whilst that Ignium Motorsport livery does look cracking on the Lamborghini Huracan, I do hope he stays with the Ferrari, because look at that livery. Particularly on the front of that car, the way it blends, as you see. He's parked himself in a bit of a pickle of a situation there, as he finally does jump back to the garage. And I think that was a bit of a minor obstruction to some of our drivers coming through, but nobody's going to be majorly inconvenienced by that, just having to weave slightly off the racing line in the run-up towards 6. We can also see there Billy Fletcher racing in the Twitch chat saying Matt Evans in that Luxtim-inspired M4. Another masterclass from Mark Sykes Designs, and indeed a fantastic looking car. But everyone right now getting into the position to jump to the pits. And speaking of someone who's not jumping to the pits, but instead jumping his way across that timeline to go into one final lap, it is none other than Peter Lemkens, the Belgian driver, as he makes his way through turn number 1 here in the Lamborghini Huracan, and indeed a newcomer to the series as of this pre-season test. And as he makes his way through turn 3 here in the number 77 machine, it will be the case that Lemkens will be racing in the Pro category, as he makes his way all the way down towards turn number 4, and takes a little bit of a bob and a weave there towards what was the grass on the run down the Repro Posta there, and it can be a little bit disconcerting trying to keep the car pointing in a straight line. I know I sound a little bit sarcastic there, but it is the case. He makes a mistake through turn 4 that sometimes on those straights, just a tiny little bit of misinput on the steering wheel can cause things to drift over, and when you tap that grass, it's a horrible feeling. But we can see that right now as we continue to look around here. We've got Caruana, who has just gone on to a lap. I don't think he was able to improve, but I think it is going to be Enio Bava, who's currently in the pits, who takes pole position in this pre-season test. And we now get ready with the final laps coming in for the sprint race, which will be coming over within the next minute or so, as Caruana, I believe, is on a lap as it currently stands, as is Robert de Sunic has definitely completed his qualifying session. There is no way that he is currently on a lap, because of the fact that he's just making his way through turn number 4, which would indicate that he crossed the line after the 15 minutes was up. We've also got Gus